Welcome. This is Candy with the Candy Shop Shows. We are having a special edition. Normally our shows are on Wednesday nights at 6:30 Pacific time, but we've got some special panel guests here today, and just want to welcome them and share with my friends, and I'm pleased that on short notice we're having some of the Candy Shop Show fans show up. We will be putting this on YouTube as soon as we can. Our shows are part of the Diamond Network, which has shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday these days, on the evenings usually. Okay. Julien Wells, you want to say hello to my fans?
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I've enjoyed my talks with Elizabeth, and I'm looking forward to today being along the same levels of joy.
Wonderful. And Christopher Jacobs?
Yes, I'm here. I'm glad to be here as well.
Okay. At the end of the show, we'll give you both a chance to share your websites and your contact information, and hope that my guests will have a pen and paper ready for that. Elizabeth, are you there? She might be popping in. Okay.
I am here, guys. Nice to hear you all, your voices. Thank you.
Great. Yes, everybody can. Okay. Well, I have a quick survey. I know just a few of the group have arrived, but would like for Julien and Christopher to know something about the Candy Shop Show fans. Listen, would everybody say hi? Uh-oh, people muted themselves. They're such good folks. I kind of wanted you to mute yourself after we had the brief introduction. If people would unmute themselves for a second, I wanted to give you a quick survey. Can we try it again? Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Candy. This is Carla.
Okay. Good. Would everybody say all at once at the same time, what state are you from?
Hi, Minnesota.
Nebraska.
This is sunny California.
Washington.
Missouri.
Wonderful. Okay. And would everybody say yes who has seen star people, starships in the nighttime?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
And
yes.
would everybody say yes who's seen starships in the daytime?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good deal. All righty. Well, let's. You guys can self-mute if you'd like. We're going to give the audience a chance to ask some questions near the end of the show. I want to take a moment here at the beginning to have an invocation and just say the Diamond Network's favorite prayer, the law of one. For we are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. And when one is helped and loved, all are helped and loved. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all, I ask that only that which is the good of all concerned happen here and now. And I ask that our brothers and sisters throughout the universe who like to come are certainly invited, the Pleiadians, the Syrians, the Ra group, and the guides for everyone on this call, and the angelic host. And we know that good will happen here and now and throughout all time and space. And it is done. I give thanks. Wow. Well, listen, I know that this is the first time that Julien Wells and Christopher Stephen Jacobs have been on a panel together, and just invite you both to share what you'd like to share, even if your host fails to ask the right questions. I came to a lot of this topics about the Star Brothers and their help for us in the modern time through the Anastasia books that were channeled by Vladimir McGree out of Russia and finally put into English in 2003. And I'll be speaking about her on the Thursday night Diamond Network show at 7:30. But she shared about some of her teleporting experiences to other solar systems. And before Vladimir wanted to write about it, he wanted to experience what she was talking about. So she put her, so he went up to Siberia to meet with her in person before he did some more channeling from her. And she put her arm on his, her hand on his arm, and in what felt like him to be seconds, he opened his eyes and found himself in another galaxy, on another planet with star beams that were of the not carbon but silicon base. And these were strange creatures to him. He was brand new. He was a businessman to all of these subjects, and these creatures didn't look very friendly, and they were working with some equipment. And Anastasia started to disable the equipment and explained to Vladimir that this was equipment that they were going to attack Earth people with. And they noticed Vladimir and Anastasia standing there and what they were doing suddenly, and they got very agitated. And Vladimir grabbed something off the table, and Anastasia dismantled things and decided that the two of them ought to get out of there pretty fast. So they did. Back home in Siberia, Vladimir asked, why didn't we wear helmets to go to that kind of a silicon-based planet? And she said, I estimated the length of time we would be gone, and I just took the atmosphere from here in Siberia that had plenty of oxygen that we were used to, and I just teleported the atmosphere as well as ourselves to this planet. And Vladimir was quite amazed, and he reached into his pocket and was shocked to see the item that he had picked up on the trip. So that was one of my introductions to teleporting and visiting other planets, and I wondered if Julien would like to say something about the way that he learns or visits other spaceships or planets, and then we'll ask Christopher the same.
So that's a really awesome question. I'm really glad you asked it. I've had a lot of experiences that, border on things that are paranormal or either schizophrenic to some people who give definitions of it. But really what it comes down to is that I've had my feet planted right here, but I've bilocated. Bilocation is something you can train yourself in doing, as they've done in the shadow government projects and whatnot. But the bilocation, I was never taught how to do that. I was taught, however, and practiced energy sensitivity. So coming from a place where, I knew that there were miracles out there, and I had some very interesting conversations with my higher self earlier parts of my life, I got to a place where my pineal gland was opened up more, and my sensitivity was raised to a degree that I now have, where I see auras on everything all the time, and get to the point of not just seeing light, but actually colors, and feeling things and sensing things and getting telepathic communication. And a bunch of friends of mine were literally wondering what our friends in our solar system wanted to communicate with them in some way, and find out exactly how they felt about what was going on in this point in time, since the end of 2012 phenomena. And I actually just said, well, to myself, maybe I can contact them. I'll give it a shot, sort of thing, and found out it was actually quite easy. I never really tried to communicate, but found that the communication came suddenly and very, very energetically. So it really began transforming my body the moment that I began connecting. I did not initially think it was going to be Pleiadians. I just basically thought I might communicate with a UFO that might be nearby or something, but it turned into a ship, a Pleiadian ship that monitors the Earth and communications and gathers information and shares that with other people that like the information. So they're like an information gathering of everything that's like our television stations and all the things that are in our airwaves, as well as some remote camera technology. And they weren't actually expecting me, which I figured is fine. It was a lot like, in their experience, a telephone was ringing that never rings, and they picked it up not knowing. The first Pleiadian that sort of answered my call telepathically did not know exactly what the protocol was, funny enough, as it was a Pleiadian that was new to the station. They go through a cycle of about 2 weeks to 2 months in different monitoring roles. Anyhow, I did get in contact with
Lisa.
So they led me to some Pleiadians that did know a little bit more about that. I was already in contact with Lisa Harrison at the time, and I began sharing some information, not on the radio, her and other friends of hers. And then I was persuaded by them to further communication as it suited my excitement, and start my own radio show called The Transitioning, which is closed now. Ran for over a year, or about a year. But so my experience became such that I was bilocating. First, it was telepathic thought. They are telepathic speakers. So even though I did not have any practice speaking telepathically with people here, from them it was very clear. For them, it was like, why haven't any of us done this before? Only to find that a degree of relationship with the subtle information that I considered subtle, but now is actually kind of really blunt and forthright in my experience, leads to developing telepathic listening abilities. And even if my telepathic projection of my voice is not very strong, they're sensitive enough to receive it. And it turns out that I also have my own DNA within me that was Pleiadian in origin, became more and more Pleiadian. So my own DNA became more transformed over more interactions with them, and just, through my own spiritual seeking in life. So at this point, they monitor my life 100%. Not that it's monitoring, but they're around. You can call available, but they are very physical. They have a very physical, place that you can occupy the space with them, and through remote bilocation, I'm able to actually occupy an avatar that I, through the help of them, manifested an avatar Pleiadian on their ship. So immediately the first thing I'll see is from that version of Julien's eyes. and that one walks and talks and does everything on that ship in that case. But I have also visited in sessions other other ships, an Andromedan ship in one case, an Arcturian scout vessel in another case. But it's not that I'm just doing this for fun. Usually it's coming through me through a request that's outside my conscious. So it's sort of like I'm able to do it by the request of supporting another physically here. That's the basics of my experience with that.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's encouraging. And so this is started rather recently, since
this is
2012.
About just after 2012.
And it's great.
Yeah, my public life is really dedicated to speaking from my experiences since then and my growth. And, honestly standing in a place, letting people know that my abilities are not unique to me. Everyone has them. They're just not sensitive to the subtleties of the experience that can be made less subtle through practice.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that's encouraging to my listeners here today and those later on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, I have interviewed on a panel before Ray Koslovich, and of course his experience the last 55 years has been different in that he physically has entered the spaceships, and the spaceships have physically taken him to the Circle Gray planets and other places in the space. But there's each of us have different purposes and programs, and I think this is great for what you've shared with us, and to the encouragement for some of my listeners to begin to make that kind of call as the veil is thinning. Christopher, would you like to say something about your experience? I'm in the midst of reading your fabulous book, but go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, hi. I'm Chris Jacobs. I've been on here plenty of times. I've been on Elizabeth Diamond's show plenty of times. It's good to finally meet you, Julien. I do by location as well. I've actually spoken to that very same Pleiadian vessel you spoke of, and I've talked to a few of the people here. I became friends with a Pleiadian by the name of Christos, and he said he was on that ship periodically. He came and went, and I talked to plenty of other species. I've done this since I was a child. I had beings come to me, both good and bad. One of my very first experiences, which I've said on the show before, but I'll recap it. When I was about 5, I had an experience where it was a vision sequence where I was in our backyard of our house that we lived in at the time in Chicago, and saw beings sitting on the L tracks that were out back. The L train, if nobody knows, is a train that runs through Chicago Loop and runs through the neighborhoods at different way stations and everything. And it runs behind the houses and the alleys and everything. And in the vision sequence, they were sitting, they were coming down from like a higher vibration, and then they sat on the L tracks. And I could discern like human-esque figures, and I could see their eyes were glowing different colors, like red, purple, green, yellow, blue, orange. And there were several of them there. And when I started to walk closer to them, I heard a female one saying, "Oh, he's here." And then they presented something to me that only now I'm beginning to decipher. And under the porch of the house in this vision sequence, there was what I know now to be a Draco, a reptilian. And so I was basically shown a trial that I would I have to go through with them at some point, which unfortunately has been ongoing. It's been more of an arm wrestle with them, but other countless species I've run into that have been benevolent, not malevolent. I've run into a race of giants that they actually did call themselves the Nephilim, like in the biblical stories. Ran into a good race of reptilians called the reptoid Circassians. They're very good. They're a transcendent version of the Draconians, and they are quite good. And I also have run into I have dealings with the Ra group on a regular basis, the Blue Avians. The Elohim Creator Council, I deal with them all the time. I had the privilege of bilocating more fully than I usually do to their council chambers, and it was actually Michael that introduced me to some of the council. And now, people also shudder when you use the name Lucifer, but it's very, very different than people think it is. He was one that introduced me to some more of the council. And then I actually came to find out that I am one of the reincarnations of one of the council members, and because they showed me an empty seat, and I asked who sat there, and they all pointed to me, and they said that I was on a specific mission. They couldn't relay all of it to me at the time, and I'm only beginning to scratch the surface of what that actually is. But part of it included doing a very lengthy soul retrieval session that took me like roughly 8 to 9 months to 10 months to complete, because I had so many fragments out there. I found out my higher self had dispersed some of these soul fragments throughout the omniverse, and I had to actually retrieve them. Now, some of them were not of choice. Some of them were in the hands of, say, demonic entities and stuff like that I had to go after and retrieve. And it was more of a training course on how to deal with cleansing these things, and how to, like, say, go into a haunted site and cleanse it, and how to deal with ghosts and spirits and whatnot. And and they weren't the only ones that showed me. Like, I ran into other aliens. There was this planet that I have not mentioned on the various shows so far by the name of Na, N-A. And it was in the same star system as the Greys came from, Zeta Reticuli. And I worked with them closely during the soul retrieval process, and they gave me some information from their library. Another planet I work with quite closely is called Lonulos. And they have a vast library of the cosmos. I found out they're from a future time frame. And I work with a soul group by the name of the Human Concordat. And they exist between the years of 20,000 years from now and 300,000 years from now. And granted, they would argue there's no such thing as time, but that they're just a different density, but they are essentially from our future. And that's at least some of the experiences that I've had.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all that. My goodness. So, Julien, does some of this ring a bell with you? Have you spoken to Christophe that he mentioned, and do you speak to people from the future?
So, Christophe is familiar with me, but I have not given names directly to the Pleiadians that I meet with. It is a lot more like familiar faces and familiar feelings and familiar voices to me. The names don't really carry over all the time in the sense that I come up with regular names, but I have a lot of friends that I've met and have moved on that ship specifically. I'd say in the number of a couple dozen that used to, chime in my life and, ask me questions about what's going on in front of me, or give, peculiar commentary in my head. But the ability that that Chris is sharing is something that he has a great level of sensitivity to and trust in.
Excuse me, somebody needs to star 6, please, in the background, hearing lots of noise. Thank you.
And really what I'm finding out through continuing experiences every day, many that I'm not even sure, the day before that they're about to happen. You call them downloads, you call them experiences. I'm learning day to day as I'm ready more and more for sort of like this vast behind the veil scene, experience of what's behind the scenes and what's behind the curtain, so to speak. And I'm not here to exactly teach how that happens, but I am sort of an anchor between the two sides. So it's almost like if you want to ask me to try something, I'll try it, and I'll see how far I can go with my level of awareness and what I've practiced up until that point. So it's almost like you can almost develop a skill to do just about anything from what I've come to learn. I've even done a couple things that would be basically considered miracles, instant manifestation type things that, categorically changed my experience. Like, I literally would try that and see if I could. A lot of these developing abilities were more along the lines of, I got to do it, to more of a line of, let's see if I can do it. And finding that the skills come naturally. And this, comes in part from my experience in other lives, being made available, like skills and whatnot on how to, intuitively do things. But I'm finding out that everybody that I do sessions with has these within them, has these parts of themselves from other lives with skills that are ready for this other world. It's like everyone that's standing and breathing here has inner abilities and skills that are much more exercised in sort of like the next world that we go into physically, not just sort of like teleportation in the next world. We're going to walk there, we're going to be there, we're going to live and breathe our way into it. And it's called this transitioning point in our reality, and it's or awakening point or ascending point, whatever you want to call it. It's not just a snap of the fingers. It is for some people, but for a lot of people, like we're talking like on the scale of the world, the planet, there's people that are a little bit of ahead in that experience, and they help in some way offer grounding for those that are going to follow in similar paths. So
absolutely, and that's what Anastasia was doing starting in 1992 to kind of open it up and to show about the biological technology, the fact that we all have our own individual rays that are much more stronger than a television transmission, and all the things that she set the groundwork for our decade. And before talking to you two gentlemen about bilocation, I think a lot of us are used to taking astral trips while we're asleep or while we're awake. And what's the difference in an astral trip and bilocated, if any?
I think this is a question that Chris probably gets more often or has more familiarity with it. I can only speak to my own personal experience. Chris, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Most of the astral projection that I've done, this was earlier in my life before my guides actually stopped me from doing it. They considered it dangerous for me to do at the time. But first I'm going to go with bilocation first. Bilocating, I could literally sit in the chair I'm sitting now and be in any point in creation. My guide said it was completely limitless where I could be standing in creation, or in the omniverse, parallel universes, other time frames, etc. Astral projection, it doesn't seem like it's too different. It's just a lot more intensive. And like I could be laying in bed asleep, and I could literally lift out of my body and go pretty much anywhere. But you run the risk where there's more of you, if this makes any sense, that there's more of you out there, and you have a cord that's attached to your body. So you run the risk, if you're not protected enough, of attracting the wrong kind of attention. This happened to me earlier in life when I began that, and my guides only recently lifted the ban they implemented on astral projection. Now, for me, what happened? What happens when I try to astral project? It's kind of creepy. At first, there's this feeling. It feels like you're falling and floating at the same time, like you're dropping quickly and then raising quickly if you try to lift out slowly. And to me, it's a creepy feeling. It feels like you're being paralyzed. Now, that also is associated with alien abduction, too, but in regards to astral projection, it just feels like your body is kind of it's loosening up, but you really can't move it, and you feel yourself lifting out. And if you turn around and look at your body, you see this cord. Usually people have a silver cord, or blue, or whatever color. I've seen blue and gold and red as well. But as you lift out, you can see your body kind of moving, kind of jerking, making jerking motions. And that's your nervous system trying to cope for part of you not being there. And that's why that technique can be dangerous for people who aren't ready for it. But there are some people that do it and don't realize it too. They have the knack for it, and it's uncultivated, untrained. And the way you pull it off as you get into this meditative state, the way I did it was very specific. I laid on my back completely. I had my palms face up. Picturing the energy all around me, and I got into that point of zero thought, like no interference whatsoever, and I just visualized me lifting out of my body, breathing in and out along with that. That breathing is actually important to hit, or you're going to have a rougher time out of it. And once you're out, it's actually pretty cool. You can go anywhere, but your perception is a little different than you would think of looking through human eyes. You might see several layers into it, like you might see several densities up, and you won't know what you're looking at, or you're looking at, say, a planet in the sky or a star in the sky, and it'll look literally like it's in your face. You could literally almost grab it and look at it and analyze it like it's like you have it in your hands. It can get pretty intensive.
Okay, and so did you want to explain to our listeners a little bit more about bilocation, or would Julien like to explain a little bit more about that process?
I can share a bit. So I've never been trained, and there is actually quite a bit of documentation on the internet about bilocation and different ways to practice getting to that place. Not that I've looked into it, I've just in passing come across a lot of places, forums where people are sharing each other's experiences and helping each other out with that. And I would actually begin to describe it as a more advanced form of lucid dreaming that has more consistency and has more groundingness than lucid dreaming is. So if you practice lucid dreaming first, remote bilocation becomes a little bit easier. In principle, it gets all these stepping outside of your average everyday five senses gets into these sort of blurry zones of understanding things, because as I've come to know it, we're actually a perceiver of a single point of grounded awareness, almost like we're like a camcorder and a physical camcorder, and we gather whatever is in front of this camcorder, and we gather that information, and our mind processes it and tells us what we're looking at. So that's a table, that's a person, that's a smile. And when you step outside of these areas, it starts to feel in some ways like you're trying to interpret your own dreams, because how things are given to you are not immediately able to be translated by the mind. And if you're unfamiliar with how you feel things as an existence, with this sort of sense of presence, if you're not familiar with that, then you kind of go a little bit blind into these ways. Not that you can't take a crash course in it if you sort of follow the right procedures and invitations to your body and mind to do an experience like this. But bilocation specifically is about choosing another fixed, grounded source. It can feel like, you can fly with that ability, you can go through walls, a little bit like you're a ghost, like ghost abilities. You can sort of maybe knock something over with a lot of effort, but it depends on how much energy that you're placing of your awareness into that location. Now, one of the reasons why I have a Pleiadian body, it doesn't look like me. It looks similar, and it's much taller, but the face doesn't look like me. But it is literally an individual. It's like that individual chooses to allow to channel me into it. So it's like another person, but we are so on common ground with the way that we are in vibration and where our heart is. It's a comfortable experience. Now, this sort of thing gets into lots of blurry areas that I don't know where we want to focus on with where this conversation goes, but it turns into a place where there is literally anything you could possibly imagine is not only experienceable, but can become even a greater experience, can become even more physically memorable, and can affect your life here. And when I say your imagination is the limit, imagination is literally a mechanism that gives you all the doorways, and when you begin to change your relationship with that side of yourself that you call your imagination, it becomes a tool. And we can say that, I'm, perfectly defined as a schizophrenic, but I suffer from none of the problems that a schizophrenic has, and I have all the abilities to actually begin affecting my life here. It's not just conjecture. When I do sessions for people, I am literally telling them things that help confirm things that I would otherwise not know, because I am in contact with their higher being or with their guides or whoever it's appropriate with in that place and time. So it's really a wonderful, adventurous place to begin when you're doing it for the right reasons. And when I say right reasons, I mean along the lines of not doing it because you have to or because you need to protect yourself from a problem. Those will generally only attract more challenging experiences, or the resistance itself will not let you through the gates of that experience. That's basically what I have to say about it.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. I just am real proud of the Candy Shop Show fans, that they are quite informed on these topics very much. And as you can tell, I kind of wanted to just jump in the middle of your stories. And, of course, Chris does some fabulous sessions as well, healing and past life regressions and many kinds of things, and using one's imagination to rewrite the past and to take and to break negativity from contracts. did I summarize some of that right, Chris?
Yes, you did. Yeah, it is an adventure, like you said, Julien. Yeah, and also it is important, not to focus on like the negative entities. I've fallen into that before, like with doing healings with people. I run across the Draconians constantly. I mean, the Greys constantly, and for a while, it sometimes will cause me to go into more of us like almost like a defensive battle mode, and I don't want to do that when I'm doing the by location. I don't like that. I hate having to, raise the shield and the sword all the time. But also I was told by Tyler, he's another being I've spoken to, Julien. He once told me that ignore the negative beings, keep the protection up. While I'm doing that, ignore them, and they'll just bounce right off of my shield, and they won't be able to get to me. Now, Tyler is somebody I met that was like you with your Pleiadian friends, was surprised that I was able to see and hear him and speak to him. Very surprised. He's a extraterrestrial human, I call him, and there was a name I heard online by the name of Pinar, and so I called out to that name to see who I got, and Tyler was who I got. And he lives on an enormous city ship that's run by it. It creates its own water and its own supplies and its own plant life and everything. It's a paradise. And I speak to him quite frequently, but I'm getting off on a tangent here. But when I bilocate, yeah, it is an adventure, especially going into parallel universes. I deal with races that don't even exist in this universe, say something exists here that doesn't exist somewhere else, and vice versa. I've run into very powerful species that have evolved differently in a different parallel universe, and ran across a different reptilian species called the Agress, and they existed on a parallel timeline. They were very similar to the Draco, but they were more easily swayed towards the good side. If you talk to them nice enough, they were more than happy to hear you out. Another species called the Telenorians. They're of our time continuum, but they had the ability to travel the omniverse. They were negative at first too, but I was able to kind of sway them a little bit. Syrian star beings. They're from the distant future. I mean, the possibilities are endless when it comes to bilocating. I mean, yeah, you have to be fully present. My guides were always stressing that you had to be in the moment to pull it off correctly, and you couldn't be distracted by things like noises or things around you. You had to be kind of in that moment of silence, and that's what they've always stressed with me.
Absolutely. And, of course, Ray has met 33 species in the flesh, and it sounds like between the two of you guys have met even more on the various dimensions and timelines. I've listened to several of Chris's sessions, and he sometimes finds people that he feels are close to developing the kind of bilocation skills that you two gentlemen have. Have either of you thought about helping mentor these people that might be close to developing them in a specific way, or just doing things general like the encouragement you're giving today?
So I'm going to be getting going soon here, but I'll quickly answer that question. A part of a future self of mine explained to me a bunch of things that I'll be doing as long as I remain in the path of my heart, that I'll see these on this sort of timeline. And there is going to be a time for practicing that. It's going to be less, for me, I'm less interested on spending a lot of time one-on-one, and more interested in working in group settings where each other is validating the experience for each other. as in we do bilocations in groups, and we can all share common imagery and common experience. Currently, the discipline of the human mind is not quite ready on average. There's many that are, and some are born with, the natural gift to practice this. But just a brief summary, my background comes from a family that stresses the exercise of meditation. And so since the age of 3, my parents have followed a meditation guru that gave me the skills very early on. And it's not just about quieting the mind, it's also this ability to practice focusing as well, and altering states of your state of mind. You have different states where you call them sometimes feelings. I'm feeling like this or feeling like that. Having the ability to maneuver around different states of feeling is also extremely helpful at the same time. Anyhow, it's a really deep subject. I love these kinds of conversations. Please have.
Well, listen, I know you're going on vacation for a week soon, but you said that you recently, Julien, and maybe Chris can stay on a little bit longer after you leave, but you said recently that you got to see behind the veil, and you were meeting the Ascension team at work, and here we are on September 15th, 2015, and there's been a lot of predictions made for events to happen in the next 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And I wondered if you'd like to say anything about the predictions or what the Ascension team is doing.
I can share a little bit about my experience. I was not leading the Ascension team, but I sort of came above like a cloud, where you can call it people that were like light workers or ascended beings and whatnot. They have like this place, we'll call it Cloud 9, just for simplifying a location. And they all sort of like come up above this cloud. They gather and share information, and they tend to come up during certain dates. We'll call them portal dates, or dates where there's lots of downloads for people and transitioning experiences. And I came above the clouds and met all these other people and find out what's going on. I got a much, much bigger picture of this whole ascension picture, this concept, and a better understanding of what that is and how it's happening and who's getting involved in helping that occur. Something that's very hard to describe in a short span of time, but from that place I gained such immense comfort and relief about where everything's headed and in the near future. But currently the dates there are multiple dates where people are going to have a chance to really get their head above water in terms of getting to understand their lives and getting a grips on their creator nature, on their oneness perspective of things. And that's going to continue through for the next year or so till a significant point in my timeline. I can only speak to my experience, that in about a year, almost everything will be wrapped up, and that no one will be under this illusion that there are anything other than opportunity in every possible way that you can explore your imagination in about a year from now. That doesn't mean that we all have the skills. There'll be many who are ready to share and teach and help people practice. But, things like a governing body on this planet will be pretty much a non-issue for most people's personal experiences at that time. Not to mention the idea of having much more literal experiences with our star families are going to become much more abundant after that point. Speaking about September, there is quite a bit going on already leading up through to the end of September. This is, I want to say, for me, it's more significant than any other time period that I've experienced, including when I was awakening in early 2013 in a whole new way. So I'm really excited about what comes forward and who wakes up and who has more to share and see what our star families would like to do with those that have a newer, more able experience to relate with them. So I've been told that there's opportunities in so many ways as a result of the great work that each of us are doing in transitioning and letting go past conscious programs and belief systems. The energy is going to be ready in such a way that we can begin living a little bit more of a fluid nature, less dependence on money and things like old form energy structures. So that's basics.
Absolutely. Some of us, we're very pleased that Chris on one of the Diamond networks in our group shared the energy, so that a lot of the satellites that were protecting some of the positive ETs, preventing some of the positive ETs from arriving and helping, that they got dismantled about 10 weeks ago, and it just feels like that the timeline and everything is speeding up, for first contact and things of this nature, and you're kind of affirming that when you're saying these things will happen within a year's time. I also
want to say within a year, just about everybody will have met someone face to face that wasn't born on this planet. That's what my sense is, and there'll be lots of that as it continues. From right now, we'll continue to go in that direction for those that are in alignment with them. You really have to actually be in alignment with them. It doesn't happen with such a large disparity. They're not interested in experiences where there's such a large disparity of how one experiences reality or has an understanding of their reality.
Yes. In the Law of One book in 1981, 100 years after the Oahspe was channeled, they said that there were 65 million wanderers on Earth at that time, and now the reports are that there are many more wanderers, old souls, that have reincarnated so many times and volunteered to come and help us at this time of transition, and that most likely everyone who's on this call or who've stumbled across Julien or Christopher are these wanderers, and that they have been transitioning already since December into the fourth dimension, and that the transmission from one channel was that we're getting ready for a billion of these wanderers to transition into fifth dimension, and then maybe September 28th, and then setting the way for the rest of the beings on Earth to follow, like you said, within the year. Is that one way to describe this in your framework also, Julien?
Yes, but I would not call it a billion. The number is actually up to each individual. It's almost like the number is representative of our outward alignment with ourselves as one. So those that we can recognize that we find an alignment with, we actually transition the world through our own transformational, personal transformation. But I do got to run at this point. I got to pick up my daughter.
Can you share the name of your book or your website?
So my website is julienwells.com. It has links to my YouTube channel and my booking site. And Julien is spelled with an E, JulienWells.com. And it's been great talking with you all. And until the next time.
We appreciate it. We appreciate your work.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, that was exciting to hear someone, and I've been to his website, and the people just rave about the sessions that he has, and the kind of help that his guides lead him to help folks with in all different aspects of their lives. So Julien Wells is out there on the internet, and he's been in a lot of panel discussions with Ray and many of the others, and he describes himself as a reality programmer, really emphasizes the positive. Well, Chris, would you like to comment on some of the subjects that Julien was speaking to there at the end?
Yes, yeah, I actually agreed with him on and everything he said. I agree with him with the numbers. I've noticed that does change from person to person, like who you really connect with, and that sounds to me like the formation of like soul groups. This is what my guides have emphasized with soul groups, how it begins with like a few people, and it expands to millions, and like the Ra group is trillions of souls, and it just keeps expanding with every soul group they blend with. Like they blended with the Pleiadian Collective, they blended with the Orion souls, and a few other smaller soul groups, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. And now, and like he said, it depends on the individual. Like my guides were telling me what I put in the book. The individual has more variances and nuances than a whole group does. And what he said today rang true with me as well, based on that information that I've received.
Excellent, excellent. And he was hoping to open it up to questions from the audience, and I'd like to invite folks to unmute, and Christopher's still a volunteer here, and maybe he and I can help you with any questions that folks would like to offer at this point. Remember, his website was JulienWells.com. And while people are writing that down, Christopher, would you like to give out your website and contact information?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I don't have a simple.
All right. Well, take care.
I don't have a simple URL, but mine is Christopher Stephen. That's with a PH. Number 8 .wix. That's WIX.com/WatcherSpeak. That's WATCHERSPEAK. And I'm going to change that real soon to a simpler name. But then my email is ChristopherStephenJacobs@gmail.com.
Great, great. Do we have a question from the audience?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, Chris. You've done this since your journey started as a little child.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share with us on a scale of just say low, medium, and high, where people are in their journeys to communicate with our star brothers and sisters, not just communicate, but tangibly have that presence, whether it's telepathy or they're in your room? So for like to say for a group of medium people, what can you offer us to, start that journey from your experiences?
Well,
I know there's many tools out there.
Oh yeah, from my experiences, it starts with dreams usually. When they're trying to get you acclimated to their frequencies, they'll show things in symbols, show things metaphor, and they will slowly work you up the ladder to get to a more telepathic level. It took me years to get to the spot I'm at now. But I mean, some people will attain that quicker. Some people will attain that slower. I was told it depends on the individual and their energy and what they have to heal within themselves. But meditation can also start this. This can trigger, getting into that silent place, that point of zero thought, I call it. and to the point where you silence everything out, and you just drift into that point of zero thought. And then you'll hear what's around you, but always go into it with protection, of course. But that's how I started, and it did take me quite a while to get to where you guys know me as. But it took me from being, like I said, a child, it was more random and dream form. Then teenager, it was dream form mixed with automatic writing. And then there was a gap in there, and then it went into automatic writing more, and then it became full telepathic conversations after a while.
Well, that's great.
What are your...
and I think I want to say that folks can do it so much faster if this is their desire, because of all the proton light energy coming in. It's not 30 years ago. It's 2015, and these things can happen much faster.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just go on a journey with us, Chris, and just say that time is compressing, and that means it feels like us. There is no time, but it feels like us. Time is going really fast, and we already know our DNA is changing. And I know you went through this course of what you did, but just go into your intuition or your sense of how that would look like for us. I guess it would begin with people getting quiet and maybe start healing and loving themselves. I don't know. So let's just venture this a little bit. What do you think? It may not be true or not, but what are you sensing? How that would look like?
The first point I would deal with is, say, get rid of any grudges that you have. Any I call them ballasts or weights. Like, say, forgiveness is a good start. Like, say you did something wrong earlier in life, that would be self-forgiveness. Somebody did some wrong to you or continues to do so. Forgiveness is the starting point, even before loving anybody. Forgiveness either in self-form or towards someone else. I learned that is a very good starting point.
Yeah. So to forgive yourself and to forgive all others and to forgive situations, to forgive yourself. Yeah. Okay. So after forgiveness, what's the next step? And maybe just trace some steps really quick for us. That'd be great. Is that okay, Candy?
Sure, Elizabeth.
Yeah. After forgiveness, that would be more or less like loving yourself. I've noticed this, for a while I had problems with that, even though I was communicating before that time and my guides were always stressing that. Loving yourself is good. Living in the moment, that would be along those lines after loving yourself, living right in the moment instead of thinking for the future all the time or living in the past. That goes along the lines like, say, if you were screwed over in the past or something like that and you kept dwelling on it, you're living back there. You're not living now, since all time frames happen at once. You're living in a different sector of this sphere of time energy. So you got to live right in the now. And my guides have always stressed that, along with self-love.
And what's after that? Living in the now.
Well, that is a good, like I said, a good starting point. Also, loving everyone else. That I know that's a lot more difficult, but and I'm still working on that as well. But that is a good place to keep going with it. But in regards to communication, like with telepathic communication, it builds up over a period of time like a muscle. Like, say you're a weightlifter, and it's just an automatic thing. Your DNA changes as you go along, and guides will do sometimes to speed up the process, like they did with me. Some of them gave me gifts, and they gave me skills. Like, they merged minds with me to give me skills along the way, knowing full well I could intuitively, kind of extrapolate, what they were saying. So they kind of sped me up. They did accelerate me. They did take credit for accelerating my genes. Like, the Blue Avians came to me and said they took credit for accelerating my genome growth. earlier in my life, and that I didn't know about it.
Yeah. So okay. So now we are up to loving ourselves and loving all others right now from August 22nd to September 22nd. We're in the crown chakra where we're becoming to know that we are all one, which includes loving all others, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a fast pace we're in right now. So what would be the next step?
Well, like I said, the living in the present moment, just being yourself. That's really the one of the keys, and like what Julien said, imagination. I've been told time and time again, use your imagination, be creative, create anything you want, whatever intuitively comes to mind, just create it. Do what you feel, like what Simeon always told me, like when I'm writing, he goes, write what you feel. And I wrote that's how I came across my poetry books when I wrote them originally, and because it came from the soul, it wasn't like forced, like you were trying to follow some kind of logical pattern. It came straight out, and it was the language of the soul. At the time, I called it language of heaven, but it's more the language of the soul, since heaven is in each person, and God is each person is God. And that would be I would see creativity and imagination as the next one.
And then just make the call and do it.
Yeah.
So
painting pictures. That's anyway. Yeah. So thank you guys. I'm mute now.
Okay, Elizabeth. Well,
I got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Chris, when you do a reading of someone, are you always seeing them in the same timeline you're in, do you feel?
I see them in multiple timelines all at once. I see the conglomeration of past, present, and future. And since everything is existing in the present moment, I see it as all happening at once. And sometimes it's difficult to kind of discern on a linear timeline, since that's not how time truly functions out there in the universe. It's sometimes difficult to put things on a logical time scale. But yeah, that's how I view it anyway.
So they may or may not experience that, what you're seeing.
I know they'll experience some variation of that, but it also depends on what other variables are in play too. I've come to know this very recently, where something in the future can be altered. Time is pretty fluid too. It's like flowing water. Some things can change, but I have seen something set in stone as well, like if it's in your contract. But I always go by the Doctor Who axiom, where the character Doctor Who goes, time can be rewritten, and that's true of both the positive and the negative, because any variable that comes into play, like say I would see something happening for you the next day, like say, oh, this person comes in or this person comes in, there could be another force that steps in and puts a kibosh on that. And you really wouldn't know why that other thing didn't happen unless somebody had seen what variable actually changed it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, Chris, I know there was an emergency come up and you couldn't be on the Diamond Network Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be available to be on my part of the Diamond Network tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 8:30 Central?
Yeah, I could do that. Yes.
Okay, you heard it here first, guys. Christopher's going to be my surprise guest for tomorrow night. So join in. It's the same phone call number that you just dialed to get here. So do join us tomorrow night at 8:30. And then Thursday night, go back to the Diamond Network 209 number to hear Elizabeth and I share what's from our heart.
And actually, Candy, we got a call tonight. Got a call tonight with Dale and Sunny, Voices from the Alternative World on the Diamonds line, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Well, that's right. I'm glad you shared that.
Oh, yeah, Cynthia is going to talk about her hippie days, the community living. So that's going to be, she has a wealth of beautiful stories that will inspire you, everybody.
Absolutely. I think it's great to get better acquainted with Cynthia. She inspires us so much now, and it's good to know the foundational work of what she's sharing. Before we wrap this up soon, was there another question or two from my audience for Chris? Well, I don't want to wear us out because we want to come back at 7:30 for Elizabeth's show, and so Christopher, I thank you for your plans to get this up on YouTube soon. I hope people will push it around the internet, and that all of Julien Wells' friends will tune in and then tune in to Elizabeth's shows. My goal in the interim here is that we have at least 24 of you wonderful folks on each one of our calls, because I think that that's a magical number to have good energy and to accomplish a lot. And then, who knows, then we'll be going to 2,400. So,
hey, Candy, let's create that right now. And we're not going to let's not put 24. What's a bigger number, you guys? What's a good, how about,
48.
What do you think? No, 48. bigger, in the thousands.
Well, the calls will only hold 100 people.
Oh, the calls can hold 1,000 people, so that's our goal. So everybody, everybody imagine 1,000 people on live on the Diamonds Network Candy Shop Show. Go.
Absolutely.
And keep imagining for us. We'll do this as a group creation. How's that? Somebody draw a picture of that, too, okay? 1,000 people on the Diamonds line.
1000. Oh, I got so many questions and things, but I think we should wrap this up. And if you like what Candy asked and what Chris answered, then say thanks, and it's a wrap.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Love you all.
Love you.
Love you.
Thanks, Chris.